Welcome, televiewers, and thank you very much for joining us on Viewpoints in tonight's midweek edition of your favorite debate program. With us this evening, we are having again an inside guest, that is somebody from the house. I'm talking about Cynthia Guemo, and we are having Mange Venashus to accompany us. We'll be discussing issues concerning the Anglophone crisis that has been ongoing for 4 years today, and we'll be talking about issues concerning Africa as a whole. So stay tuned and enjoy this debate program. For the meantime, let me welcome our guest tonight. Good evening to you, Cynthia, and thank you very much for being part of us.
Good evening, Vanessa. Thank you for having me, and good evening to our dear televiewers.
Mange Venashus, it's a pleasure having you again.
Good evening, Vanessa. It is my pleasure being there too, and good evening to our viewers in the house.
Viewpoint is a debate program divided into two parts. That is the yes or no question and answer. And later on, we are coming to have the debate for our guests to justify why they said yes or no. Up now is the first part. Has the impact of the ongoing crisis in the northwest region and the southwest region affected other parts of Cameroon, Cynthia?
Yes, it has.
Yeah, it has. Mange Venashus.
Evidently, it has.
It has. Question 2 is privatizing Cameco a good business project for Cameroon presently? Mange Venashus.
Yes, Vanessa.
Cynthia?
Yes.
It is. And our last question for tonight, going out of Cameroon, is the African Union theme of silencing the guns achievable? Mange Venashus.
Not at all.
Cynthia?
I think it's not.
It's not. So it is unknown. All right, let us take a second part of the show, that is the debate. As a reminder of our first question, has the impact of the ongoing crisis in the northwest and the southwest regions affected other parts of Cameroon? Cynthia, you said yes. It has affected other parts of Cameroon.
Yes, of course. Like it's very obvious. It's one of the most obvious things that the crises that have been going on in the northwest and southwest since 2017 till date have evidently had a very huge effect, not only in these areas where the war is ongoing, but equally in the other French-speaking parts of the country, especially these ones that are very close to the English-speaking regions. Here we are talking mostly about the southwest and the northwest. Let's take Douala, for instance. Douala is very close to the southwest region, and we have areas like Tiko, Mutengene, and Boya, and so on. While in the other parts of the country, like which is in the west region, we have people from the northwest that come into the east region and have into the west region rather, and have settled there. And talking about the consequences, there are just so many. There are just so many, but if we have to number them, I think one of the first would be the issue of population, overpopulation, and the pressure that it can put on the people living in the areas that are receiving these people. Because as a result of the crisis, it's very obvious that the people cannot stay there, keep receiving stray bullets and having gunshots showered into their homes, and their loved ones being killed as well as themselves. So normally, to escape from the violence going on that way, they have had to take refuge in the French-speaking areas. And we talk of Douala and Yaoundé, as well as Bafoussam being the towns in Cameroon that have received the highest number of internally displaced. And with this, we realize that there is this thing, like I just earlier said, overpopulation. You walk almost every street in Douala now, you hear English-speaking people, and some of them cannot even say a word in French. And when they come this way, it's maybe because they are counting on one or two relatives. A relative that had 1 or 2 children and were just barely struggling to meet up with their own daily expenditures and to feed every day. Imagine having to receive like 3, 4, or 5 more people whom are depending on them, whom they have to feed every day. Imagine the pressure that is being put on them.
So
having to feed these people. Of course, it has caused housing problems. And that brings me to one of the issues where you realize that in Douala now, I don't know about the other towns in Cameroon, but you realize that the cost of housing in Douala now, it is higher than it used to be. It's true that housing has always been expensive, but now, recently I had somebody who was looking for a new home, and the person had to really walk for long before finding a place. And even when he happened to find a place, the prices were just terrible. We realized that a single room that would normally cost maybe 25,000 francs at first, now if you don't have at least 35,000, you cannot get one. Why? Because they know that there is that pressure. There are so many people looking for houses. People have escaped from the northwest or the southwest, and they need refuge. So you see that even economically, it is really impacting those people who are back here, because like I was earlier talking about the pressure that is put on the families and how they have to feed more mouths. Imagine even the French speaking people here who feel that they are being invaded somehow, like the little jobs and all the like that they knew that were certainly theirs. Look at here chantiers, for example. You see many of the Anglophones coming in to take even less the amount of money that was previously being paid, because they are desperate to have something. And then you realize that those who were formerly there, they have grievances. The effects are just so many. If we have to keep going on, I don't think that we can exhaust it all today. But like you say, on your body, if you have headache, or let's say if your stomach aches, it's obvious that your whole body is sick. So the fact that these regions are in crisis means that the whole country is affected, and the effects are just so many. And those even people back here that maybe don't have anything to do directly with the crisis, you realize that they're also having huge pressure. They feel that their jobs are being taken. The houses that they were supposed to pay for cheaper prices, now they are getting more and more expensive. Even there in the market, maybe people struggle and whatsoever. So that is, it is really a huge thing that we cannot really...
probably overpopulation also.
Yeah, the overpopulation issue. I think the problems really come from the side of overpopulation. It's true that Douala has always had a huge population, and it has had its challenges. But right now, I think the challenges are just double. Not to talk of street people, criminality. Imagine living, you knew nobody. You lived in Bamenda maybe, where you had your home, you had very little to pay for water and for light. And because you have to save yourself, you run away and come to, let's say, Bafoussam, where you don't know anybody, you don't have anybody. You find yourself sleeping in the streets. Some get into prostitution, some get into stealing. It is just a terrible situation. Like, if we can go talking about it the whole day, we shall not even exhaust it.
We shall talk about it. Thank you very much for your viewpoint, Cynthia. Mangevenashu, Cynthia just touched the aspect of the impact mostly felt by the population in general. What of the economic sector of Cameroon as a whole?
Actually, Vanessa, you know, before the onset of this COVID-19 pandemic, the Cameroon Employers Union, known by its French acronym as GICAM, came out with a publication indicating that for the past 3 years that this crisis has been going on, the economic impact in Cameroon is in billions. And remember, even before then, the government of Cameroon had declared the northwest and southwest regions as the economically distressed, economically
stricken regions.
Actually, which means these regions were barely producing nothing to the economy. Look at a region like the southwest region that had a company like CDC. CDC is the second employer in Cameroon after the government. CDC is practically broken because of this crisis. Workers could not go to the farm. The farms are completely abandoned. The farms are in ruins. You see, bananas are already... You tend to ask, when we measure the actual impact economically of this crisis for the past 3 years, that's what GICAM was telling the government, is so much. And it was a call that we should see what we can do. We are talking at the point of at a global level. All microfinance financial institutions in Bamenda closed down. It was not as if it has stopped. It is practically impossible for business to continue in Bamenda. You know, Business people in Bamenda succeeded because they used to come down to Douala, buy, go up and sell and turn over. Same thing in Boya, in Southwest. Yes, but now just to leave Bamenda and come to Douala, leave Southwest and come to Douala, you are not sure. Buy the products or the goods from Douala and get them to your locality. Because when we talk of Southwest, Southwest is not only Boya, Southwest is not Motengeni, Southwest is Northwest is not only Bamenda. We are talking of take it to Nkambe, take it to Akwaya, take it to Mamfe. These are practically no-go areas. And you discover that the impact is felt right into the government coffers. Right into the government coffers. And it has affected projects. When government gives out report, you see the public investment projects, they have failed to succeed. When I listen to reports that are being produced, you hear a council will sit and say they have that they have attained 87% investment or the 87% execution of this project. I tend to ask myself, in most of these councils, mayors are not even there. In most of these councils, councillors are not even there. There are no ways that project roads are even broken. How do people go about carrying out these projects? I think that this crisis that has gone on practically 4 years, October is coming to make 4 years already, Cameroonians has failed it so much, not only in this part of the country. Cynthia was talking about the issue of overpopulation in cities like Douala and
cities nearest to the regions.
Vanessa, you need to look at when you step out of your home in the evening.
I would like to ask, what about the border countries? Because there is also a large number of IDPs there.
When you listen to the number that is in Nigeria, you would also understand that the level at which Cameroonians are living beyond what you can think, beyond what we can describe. Because people who were used to living a free, people who a free kind of life, you are free in your house, you are compelled to live in a camp. And you know what it means living in a camp. You know everything that comes with living in a camp, disease, all funny things that you can think of living in a camp. But then I was talking about the issue in town here, back home. You just need to step out in the evening and you see the misery. The image that we are presenting of Cameroon is a kind of people who suffer a lot. Anybody who comes to Cameroon, perhaps to cities like Douala and Yaoundé and Bafoussam, the first impression you drive home is Cameroonians suffer a lot.
That we are in misery.
We live in abject misery and poverty because people are barely surviving. He was asking, a household of just a father, mother, 2-3 children in Douala with the cost of living is not easy. Now you would have to accommodate about 3-4 other people. With the cost of living, with the economic situation that we are living, with the COVID-19 pandemic era that we are living in, you understand what that means. I think that this crisis, the effect in this other part of the country is so much that anybody who pretends, our brothers in this other side of the country may think that, when it started, it was a crisis for Anglophones. But the effect now, everybody feels it. Everybody, any genuine Cameroonian feels it. Yes, if you want to be Cameroonian, you would tell me that, if anybody who is Cameroonian tells me that this crisis has nothing to do with it, the Cameroonian is not serious. Any Cameroonian feels the impact of this crisis.
And Venasius, just to add to what you were saying concerning the economic side of it, the economic effects of the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon as a whole. Remember, just recently, there was, just like you said, that the English-speaking regions, as well as the far north region, they were already cited as the economically stricken regions. So the impact was so high to the extent where the GDP was seen dropped to a certain level, because look at Sonara, look at the CDC, what they used to invest or what they used to produce and inject in the economy was just so huge, and now that they are all fallen, the effect is really so high to the extent where the government even had to give incentives as to saying that business people should invest in these regions and not pay taxes for. So you see to what extent the effects have been felt at an economic level. So we have the social effects and all the like. It is really a terrible situation that till now we still don't understand why it is not being solved, because as as long as the thing goes on, we are all going to suffer. And I'm guessing that the more time goes by, the more the effects are getting more and more serious. And if we still don't do anything about it, it shall get even worse. Look at, we had our grandparents that used to survive by maybe trading. They will plant vegetables over there, carry it here, sell it, go back the next day in the morning. Now, common bananas. Do you know how much, let's say, 4 fingers of banana in the market now? If you don't have 100 francs, 4 fingers of banana,
300 francs.
Exactly. And if you, the last time I went to the market, I was so shocked to buy bananas. You know, these common bananas, unripe bananas that used to be, that they used to say used to be versé in the market. But that with 200 francs, you could buy bananas and prepare for your whole family. I went to the market with intentions of buying bananas for 500 francs, and I was so shocked to the extent where I said plantains have become cheaper than bananas. Because when CDC was open, we had it abundantly. But that is just one of the few examples, not to talk of common foodstuff that were so abundant in our market and very cheap, and we're taking them for granted. But now that the accessibility to actually go over there and bring them here, it is not there.
It is not possible.
It is not possible.
The impact,
so it is
like it affects the whole country.
Affects the whole country. And just like you were saying, if somebody pretends that they don't feel the impact of it, then that person must be a hypocrite. And I want to say that every family, every English-speaking family living in any of the French-speaking parts of the country, I'm sure that you must have received at least 2 IDPs or 2 people who are displaced from the northwest or the southwest regions, and you see how heavy it can be.
Thank you very much for your viewpoint. Mangavenashu's question 2 is: privatizing Cameco a good business project for Cameroon presently? You think yes. We know that it is the national airline company we are talking about, that the government is by mid-June, July, they set it's on auction, where they are calling for private investors to have a share, a 50% share of the company, in order 51% share,
yes,
in order to permit this company to survive. We are talking of the national airline.
Actually, Vanessa, it is the lesser evil at this point, because for 10 years we have proven to the world that we cannot manage an airline company. That is what we have proven to the world. But if I had an option, I would have said yes, it is, and then I would have said no. No, in the sense that they should not privatize Cameco. They should close Cameco. Close Cameco, take an in-depth study of what it means to run an airline company. Close Cameco, take an in-depth study, go back to school to study how to manage an airline company. We don't know. We have managed it for 10. When Ahijo visited an African country and discovered that it was a Cameroonian who managed Air Afrique, he was surprised. And when he came back to Cameroon, he created Cameroon Airlines. And Cameroon Airlines, yeah, it was succeeding at the pace it was, given the period. But as time started evolving, Cameroon Airlines started having problems. The name was changed from Cameroon Airlines to Cameco. Cameco for 10 years has never taken off, has failed to take off, which means we do not know how to manage it. We should close it. Cameroon do not have an airline company for now. To me, we would not have, because when we privatize, it is still the image, it is still Cameroon. When we privatize it, it is just like a NEO that we have. It is just like the electricity company that we have. It was privatized. Why was it privatized? Poor management. So, to me, they should close it. We don't need it.
Is it not probable that when it goes to a businessman, he will know how to better manage the company? Because he will be working under the interest of, I need to make an interest.
Of course.
As compared to the government.
He'll
be thinking of making a greater percent of interest, and so will better manage the company, though the company has some debts of over 110 billion francs CFA.
There you go. What my point here is, Vanessa, when you look at some other countries, the other day I was saying that when you see a president of a country coming in, what you notice, you see President of Nigeria, for example, coming, you see Virgin Nigeria. The president of Senegal coming, you see on the plane, or Ivory Coast, you see on it written on the plane, Côte d'Ivoire. The president of Burundi coming, South Africa. The president of Morocco, all this U.S., United States of America. Cameroon comes in another, you don't know, you don't know what is there. Now, what my point is, we should say that we must not have an airline company. We mustn't. It is not a flag. It is not a flag or an anthem or a seal that we must have it. We have proven to the world that we are that we are incompetent. Let us close it down. Study what it means to have it. Study if we can have the manpower, manage the skills it needs. Yes, and then when we think that we all send them to school, send Cameroonians to school, send them to Ethiopia to go and learn what it means to run an airline company. Yes, because Ethiopia of those days, we think of Ethiopia as one of the poorest countries in Africa. When you used to talk of Ethiopia, we think of malnutrition. This is Ethiopia that is teaching. Ethiopia is the first African airline company, the fourth in the world, managing it. So we should send Cameroonians to Ethiopia to go and study what it means to manage it. And when we know it, then we come back and revive another airline company from the ashes of Cameco and Cameroon Airlines. So I think that we don't. That's why I was saying that if I had an option, I would have said yes and no. Yes, that we should privatize it because we just want to feel like belonging. That we also there is also an airline company in Cameroon. But practically speaking, it is a shame to us Cameroonians. It is a shame to a whole country of 25 million people who nobody has an idea of what it means to run an airline company.
Thank you very much for your viewpoint, Cynthia. Privatizing Cameco is all in a bid to restructure it, as we have been told. And your take on this, you think that it is a good business project at this present moment?
I would not really say it is a good business project, but seeing that we have been pushed to the wall and we have no other way out at this point, I think the only hope of saving Cameco right now is to privatize it, because we can probably agree that the most successful businesses in the world are owned by private individuals. They are not necessarily government-owned businesses that are the most prosperous in the world. And just like Venasius was saying, that we have failed. We have failed in managing this company. We have failed in really making it leave the ground and really flourish as it is supposed to. So right now, probably the only resort, the only way out is to privatize the company. And let's say after the privatization, we give it some time, and if it still doesn't work, then there I would agree with him where he says that we need to close it down, go ahead, learn from the others and see what it really means to run an airline company, and then we come back and try it again this time around. And probably privatizing it can be the way out. We never know. It can be the solution that we have always needed throughout, because there is this problem with government institutions and government businesses in Cameroon, and the problem has always been the laxity that is used in it. You know, they just sit in their offices, or they know that you are a civil servant, you work for the government. You don't have really that supervision that you are being paid according to the number of hours that you work or according to the results you produce.
They just have a task to fulfill for that.
And now that is because they know that whether they work or they don't work, they have their salary coming, they have their money at the end of the month. But now if it is being put 51% in the hand of private individuals, that is more than half. It's slightly more than half, which means, and especially if the private individuals are given positions of authority, that they are really given the power to make decisions and to say what stands where, who comes where, and so on and so forth. I think that is really a great chance that we have. Like, it is, I'll call it a revival, kind of a revival, because if serious business people come into this issue, that, you know, business people, their aim first of all is to make money. And in order to make money, the business has to prosper, it has to flourish. If it is dying, there is no way money will come from it. So it is not going to be a joking matter anymore. It's no longer going to be an issue of just saying that I came to work today, or I sit back home and I do whatever schemes I can do to make sure that I have money at the end of the month. It is going to be a result-based something, and that might actually be the way out. I think management may become more serious, it may become more productive. And the biggest problem might be the debt that the company has already accumulated so far. maybe paying the debt, and then coming up to fix the management problems, put the right people on the right positions, where it will no longer be an issue of I'm so and so person's son, I'm so and so person's daughter, and so on and so forth. So privatization, it is not a positive thing because it doesn't give us a positive image. It proves to the whole world that we are not capable of managing something as that, something as huge as that. But at the same time, it might be a kind of revival. Who knows? Maybe after privatization, some years later, Cameroon Airlines may actually come up to be what it's supposed to be.
Who knows, as you rightly put it. In our third question, is the African Union theme of silencing the guns achievable? Cynthia, you think no. When we are talking of silencing the gun, the campaign of actually promulgating peace in the African continent, silencing the guns is like creating an environment in Africa where we will no longer have wars, we will no longer have uprisings, there will be peace, there will be no genocide, and human rights are being respected. But you think that is not achievable this year?
No.
Why?
Not only is it not achievable, even in the long run, but talk less of this year. This year we have already gone to more than half of the year, by the way. So I think it's true that nothing is impossible. Even at the last minute, something can happen. But I think that going to the extent of saying that we want to make the African continent a war-free zone, an area with no gun violence at all, with no abuse on human rights, that is not possible. First of all, the problem is not even on the issue of guns itself, but it's from the African. We, the Africans ourselves, our mentality, our mindset, that is where the first problem lies. I think that if we can change our mindset of that's the hungry power nature that we have, the power hungry nature rather, that we have, and the desire to dominate others, where you think that because you have something, let's say a gun, or you have a few francs more than your neighbor, you are stronger and you have to dominate your neighbor. That is a mentality that we should first of all get rid of before talking of getting rid of guns. Because even without guns, wickedness still exists. That greedy and violent nature on human beings still exists. So I think the way out would just be, let's say, to call it possible, I think we would have to change the human nature or the African nature, our way of thinking, and our way of behaving. That would be the first thing. And since that is not possible, I think the no gun thing, I don't think it is something really achievable. Not this year, not next year, not anytime soon. Not anytime soon, because let's say, okay, if you go around telling everybody no to gun violence, no to gun violence, no to
the violation of human rights.
No to the violation of human rights. That is not possible. Sometimes when these people come up with themes, I don't know if it is that they really carry out a study and they see that this thing is achievable, or it is just a matter of setting a theme to catch people's attention,
probably,
or to catch mindset.
With the outbreak of the coronavirus, they thought that to better fight the pandemic,
people need to lay down their guns.
To lay down their guns.
We all know
because tensions have been rising. In Sudan, we had conflict. In Libya, we had conflict. In Mali, presently, we are having conflict.
Even in Cameroon, we are having conflict.
And a host of other African countries.
So that is where the point actually is. It is going on everywhere, basically at the same time. So how do you get into each of these places and tell the people, put down your guns? Let's look at only here in the English-speaking regions, as we had been saying. We have people dying. Let's say coronavirus is ongoing, people are dying, and they just plead on the people using the guns that, please, put down your guns, let us come, take the sick to the hospital in order to treat them. Is that happening? It is not happening. So people feel that when you have the gun, you have the power. Like just like they say, he who pays the pipe dictates the tune. That is exactly the same thing that we are facing. So no gun violence, gun silencing, I don't think it's possible.
You don't think it's possible? Mange Venashus, you equally think it's not possible. The African Union Summit, this was their theme, silencing the guns. Probably as a result of the outbreak of the coronavirus. The World Health Organization director also at the beginning of the pandemic called on countries in conflict to drop their arms and better fight the pandemic. Yet you think that it will not be possible for this to happen?
It will not be possible, Vanessa, because history tells us that we study history in order to chart the way for the future. The African Union has failed from the onset, and since the African Union had a kind of selective treatment when it comes to crisis in Africa, they cannot just sit in Addis Ababa and say, let us silence the guns, and the guns will be no. Remember that the African Union works on the dictate of another person who is above him. I'm talking of the European Union. So since the African Union cannot independently work in Africa, They cannot just get up in a moment like this pandemic period and ask Africans to silence the gun. Where were they when we had guns before the pandemic? So I think that because they failed before then, they cannot just stand up now and say, let us silence the guns. This theme is just a political, motivated theme, which is not attainable. So they cannot succeed. The crisis, that's why we still have the crisis going on in Africa. They have failed from the beginning.
Despite the numerous call to drop their arms.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Cynthia, for your viewpoint tonight.
Thank you, Vanessa.
And Mark Evan and Shoes, hope to have you again tomorrow.
We'll be there.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure having you. Thank you also for your attention and time to watch Viewpoint. Tomorrow we'll be right back, God willing. Have a blessed night. Bye-bye.